is a short, silly story. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Willie who had just one speed. The speed was too slow for running in races. The speed was too fast for walking with friends. So he seldom walked with friends, and he never won a race. Poor Willie One-Speed. The end. Yes, it's a silly story, but not as silly as you think. It was meant to make a point about people who read with just one speed. Are you one of them? Then you may be in trouble. It's not very efficient to read everything at the same speed, either fast or slow. For instance, you wouldn't want to read this simple fairy tale at a slow speed. And you probably wouldn't want to read this science material at a fast speed. One speed obviously won't do. So our question is, how can you change a Willie, or even Wilhelmina One-Speed, into Willies and Wilhelminas with several speeds? How can you learn to adjust your reading speeds? Well, let's start by supposing you have a reading assignment for school. Say in history. Before you read, think about your purpose for reading it. You might want to remember several details, or find the main ideas, or find a specific fact. Should your reading purpose affect your speed? It certainly should. Let's see why. The subject is the Virginia colony, page 94. Suppose you decide to read to remember details. Details like the date, the number of men, the name of their country, the number and names of their ships, the name of the settlement, and who it was named for. If you wanted to remember details like these, how would you read? Fast? Probably not. This purpose, to remember details, usually calls for slower, more careful reading. And then you'll be more likely to remember that in May of 1607, 120 Englishmen, who came in 3 ships, named the Goodspeed, the Discovery, and the Susan Constant, established Jamestown, which they named for King James I. But suppose you're not after details. Suppose you just want the main ideas, the big ones. A slow reading speed may actually interfere with your getting the big ideas, so you'll want a relatively faster speed now. Now you just watch for the pattern of ideas. So it's the pattern of big ideas that stands out now, not the details, because of your relatively fast speed. A very fast speed is usually best for the third type of reading purpose I mentioned, to find a specific fact. Suppose the fact you want is the name of the English king the settlement was named for. It's in the first paragraph. All right, here we go. And here is his name. And here he is. And here we are, having seen that your purpose is one guide to how fast you ought to read. Another guide is the material itself. Different materials are written in different ways. For instance, here's a sentence from one of Kipling's Just So stories that tells how the elephant got its trunk. You've probably read it. Then the elephant's child put his head down close to the crocodile's musky-tusky mouth, and the crocodile caught him by his little nose, which up to that very week, day, hour, and minute had been no bigger than a boot, though much more useful. It's very easy reading, but what you should notice is the way it's written. We could take out most of the words and you'd still get the idea. Elephant's child put his head down, crocodile caught his nose. You see? Now listen to a sentence from an arithmetic book. When you add, you can change the order of the addends, and the sum is the same. How many of these words could you leave out and still get the idea? Not many. That's because some subjects, like arithmetic, are written compactly. Nearly every word is important. So the material you're reading and your purpose for reading are two guides that should help you determine your reading speed. Let's put these guides to work. But we've seen enough of Willie. Let's stay with Wilhelmina for a while. This is the subject she's reading about, the science of light. In particular, how lenses affect light rays. And this is the material she's reading. Which reading speed should she choose? Fast? Well, what's her purpose? To remember details. So a relatively slow speed seems called for. But the material is science, which is written compactly. Perhaps an even slower speed would be best for Wilhelmina. Now she begins to read. The light rays passing through a convex lens. Does she know what convex means here? She just read the definition at the bottom of the last column. Convex lenses are the lenses that are thicker in the center than at the edges. Convex. The light rays passing through a convex lens at other points than center are refracted. Refracted? Let's try the glossary. Refraction is bending of light rays as they pass from one substance or material to another. Refracted, or bent. Then they come together or converge at a point. This is called the focal point of the lens. Focal point, another term to remember. Wilhelmina's relatively slow speed helps her understand and remember details. You can learn to let your purpose and material guide your reading speed, just as Wilhelmina did. To show you that you can, let's help Willie read. Willie's just finishing a reading assignment. He's given it a careful, detailed reading. But now he's going to go back and reread it to be sure he got the big ideas. Yes, that's his purpose. Purpose is the first thing we have to consider. And what's the second? Right, the material. You can see that it's geography. The first time he read the material slowly for details, but this time his purpose is to find the big ideas. Which speed should he use? Slow again? Not to get the big ideas even in reading geography. Relatively slow? No, not that speed either. The geography Willie is reading isn't that compactly written. And besides, Willie is looking for the big ideas, not details this time. Because of that, he's decided on this speed, relatively fast. He does it like this. The topic is climate and vegetation. Willie keeps that in mind as he reviews the big idea in the sentences and paragraphs. Here's one, a definition of climate. weather in an average year. And here are details that relate to it. The principal parts of climate are temperature and moisture. Here's the big idea of the second paragraph. Temperature depends on several things: latitude, altitude, winds, and ocean currents. These details are important parts of the big idea. Big idea of this paragraph? Detail, detail, detail. Relatively fast reading helps Willie see the overall pattern of ideas. So he reads at the same speed as long as his purpose and the material remain the same. Oh, he's slowing down. He's reading very slowly. What would make him do that? The material is the same. What's changed? Right, the purpose. Willie has stopped reading for big ideas for the moment. There's a fact here that he didn't remember from his last reading. South America's pointed tip lies about as far from the South Pole as the southernmost end of Alaska lies from the North Pole. It's a complicated idea, so Willie's reading it very carefully, paying attention to every word. He's got it. Purpose change, not for careful understanding, but for big ideas again. So we've seen something about using different speeds for school reading. But some of the reading you'll do will be just for fun, for your own pleasure. Now you're free to choose the material you want to read, as well as your purpose for reading it. And you can be just as free with your reading speed, too, even within the same material. Your speed can change from time to time as it suits you. But the important idea to remember is that one reading speed is not really enough. Don't be a Willie or Wilhelmina one speed. The only efficient way to read is to have several speeds and to know how to adjust them, how to use the right speed at the right time. Let your purpose for reading and the material you read be your guides.